Hey Boat Dragons, I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to be talking about 12 Months by Jim Butcher. This is book 18 of the full novels of the Dresden Files. Here's how this video is going to work. I'm going to start with a spoiler-free section. That section is going to be very short, because at this stage of the game, there's no way I can not spoil certain things. So I am going to go from the brief spoiler-free section into a full spoiler section. There will be timestamps in the description below. If you want to skip the spoilers and skip straight to the end, you can, because I've got a really special little treat at the end of the video. I am going to be drawing a prompt card from my deck of power. It's been a long time since I've done my deck of power, and I think it's about time. So if you want to skip the spoilers and see my deck of power pull, you can do that. If you have read 12 Months and you are ready for the spoilers, stick around. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, and please do stick around for my deck of power at the end as well, okay? All right, so we're starting off with spoiler-free. As I said, this is book 18 in the Dresden Files. If you count the 2 books of short stories and the law novella and the upcoming novella Outlaw, which I count, then you're looking at 22 books in the Dresden Files. But this is technically book 18. And it follows the aftermath of Battleground. I'm not going to say anything else about Battleground, but I will say that there's a big battle. It's a life-altering event for the city of Chicago. So many people are left hurting in the aftermath. So this is a book that picks up technically where the law left off. So the law does follow some of the early days after Battleground, and then we get to 12 Months. And this is a different type of book for Jim Butcher, because typically we follow Dresden over the span of a day or sometimes a week. And this time around, we're following him over a year-long span. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect with that, because it's such a different type of book. But the way he handles the year-long span, it doesn't feel like you're turning pages on a calendar to get to the next month. It feels like it flows effortlessly. And I really was impressed with how Jim pulled this book off. And Dresden continues to grow and mature by leaps and bounds. As you're reading this book, you are going to realize that Harry is not the same person that he was at the beginning of the series. There's so much depth of emotion and maturity and courage and pain. Dresden is dealing with a lot of grief from personal losses, and at the same time trying to help others who are hurting. And the depth of emotion that Harry portrays in this book makes this a very human story. And so I just absolutely loved this book for all of the depth that it brought, all of the changes that we experience with Dresden throughout the course of this book, and seeing the things that he still has to deal with, real-world threats that he's having to deal with in the midst of his own personal pain, and finding a way to balance those and to be able to move past his pain a little. It's a very human book. From what I understand, Jim Butcher had planned to go right from Battleground into Mirror, Mirror, but then he sat down and tried to write Mirror, Mirror, and he just couldn't do it. So he added 12 Months into the mix to deal with the aftermath of Battleground, both personally for Dresden himself and for the people around Dresden and for the city of Chicago, and how it affected all the minions of evil even. It's a very, very deep book. Very readable, though, at the same time, very palatable, easy to digest. The prose is very friendly. And there are so many little nuggets of wisdom that are shared by Dresden throughout the course of this book and shared by other people in Dresden's life. And the way those are written are just beautiful and thought-provoking. And so of all the Dresden books that I have read, this feels like it has the most depth of emotion, I think. And there have been a lot of books that had depth of emotion, but those were more emotion inciting events. And this book gives you a window into how those emotions are affecting Dresden and everyone else around him. So you're getting very deep and personal life moments from these characters. And the characters continue to be really well fleshed out. You get little nuances into who they are. You continue to see the nuances of Harry, but also of other characters like Lara Wraith and Thomas Wraith and Molly as well, and other family members of Dresden that I'm not going to mention because it would be spoilers for earlier books in the series. There is just so much happening in this book, and yet it feels like you're getting a year in the life of Harry Dresden and seeing all the facets that make him so human, even though he's a semi-immortal wizard. I am so excited for you to get to this book if you have not yet, and I really encourage you to get through the series. There may be some books that bother you in different ways, but I promise you the journey is worth it. And if you have read 12 Months already, you know what I'm talking about. And so I highly recommend 12 Months by Jim Butcher. And now, we are going to talk spoilers. So skip away if you want to the end of this video where I will be doing the Deck of Power, okay? And thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Spoiler alert now. Oh, where to begin? Where to begin? I know when we last left off, Harry Dresden, he and Lara had made the pact to get married at the behest of Queen Mab, and that was just, that in and of itself was a mind-blowing revelation that was even thinkable, that was even possible to happen. I mean, we all knew that Harry had some attraction to Lara Wraith, just because that's the type of vampire she is. She elicits those kind of emotions and lust, if you will, from men in general, and Harry is no different. It's mentioned early on in the book for a White Court vampire to settle down and be monogamous, or to even think about possibly being monogamous, is a real stretch. But they made the pact with Mab, and they're going through the motions, and it was a year-long courtship or engagement, right? And so that's where we get the 12 months that is figured into this book. But as with any life-altering event like this, with anybody who gets engaged, they're planning things for their wedding, and there's things that come up, right? There's life events that come up. And with Harry Dresden, you just multiply that by 10, right? So he's got all of these things going on for him. He's going on dates with Lara to try and get to know her as an actual person other than the evil succubus vampire that he has known her to be, and to try and almost convince himself at times that he can actually be a romantic type partner for her. So he's got that going on, and he's dealing with his daughter that's growing and trying to make her more a part of his life, but also trying to protect her. And I loved when he finally was willing to bring her under his roof and bring her into the castle, because, you know, he thought he was doing well by her to protect her by not making her a full part of his world. But he eventually realizes he's doing her more of a disservice and himself more of a disservice by keeping the two of them apart. And so I love that he eventually brought her under his roof into the castle. And I think it was just really amazing to see that. I loved to see Carlos Ramirez and Harry still kind of working together, even though they're on completely opposite sides now, and Harry's no longer a part of the White Council. That was really amazing to watch. I loved seeing new characters come into play, like the Valkyrie, Bear. She was just a breath of fresh air. Although there were times where I thought she was a bit too over the top. Granted, she's lived for over 1,000 years at least, but because of that, I don't think she was really the person that Harry needed to be telling him how to handle his grief, because honestly, that was one thing that did kind of piss me off in the book. It's, you know, she's trying to get him to just get over it, and you don't just get over it. I mean, there's people out there that believe that you do, and she's one of those people. I get that, and it was a good window into real life, because there are people like that will just want you to get over it, and they don't really understand where you're coming from necessarily. I mean, granted, she's seen hundreds of thousands of deaths probably over her 1,000 years, and I'm sure she's experienced grief and pain, but at this point she's probably kind of numbed to it, and that doesn't really qualify her to give Harry that advice to, oh, just get over it, Harry. Man up, move on. You've got other things that are more important. But he can't do that. He has to learn to let go on his own. And, you know, that first chapter where he's talking to someone who doesn't really get named in the chapter, but you kind of wonder to yourself, oh, is that Karen he's talking to, that he's, you know, somehow got her in his head? And then later on to find out that he actually conjured a shade of her to help him to cope, and to have her to talk to again, that really crushed me. But eventually, you know, he does move on, and he realizes that he is able to handle the emotions and to enjoy the memories of Karen that he had, and not need to have her shade, because that just really isn't her. I love when he finally comes to that understanding and is able to close out the shade and enjoy the memories of the real Karen Murphy. That's what I mean when I talk about the depth of emotions in this story and the raw and real experiences of grief. And in this instance especially, I think that is some of Jim Butcher's best writing. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happens, and if Harry was not able to come to a place of peace with his emotions, not to discard them at all by any means, but to be at peace with them, and that is finally where he found his source of strength, and power to be able to deal with all the other things that he would deal with, because there was so much. Trying to figure out how to save his brother Thomas, and the real threat of what he would experience if he let Thomas die. Then he would have to deal with the wrath of Lara, who's engaged to him, and figuring out how to cast just the proper magic that will satiate the hunger within them. And it was really interesting to see the hunger as well, because up until this point, I didn't really think of the hunger as being personified. I thought it was just talking about their hunger that grows in them, that they need to feed on somebody else's emotions. But to find out that the hunger is actually a real entity inside them, and to see all that that entails, and to find out that it's an outsider, and how that's connected to the empty dark, the empty night, the limbo in between worlds. And just, you're getting all of these little revelations that are happening about that, but he does it in such a way that he just weaves it seamlessly, and he reminds you of other events that happened previously, so that you're not feeling lost in the middle of the story. Oh, do I need to go back and read all the previous books before this? He doesn't do that. He guides you through the story in a way that helps you to remember those major events. And I really thought that was handled amazingly. And even the little droplets of joy in life that we see Harry with his daughter, and with the people that he loves, the friends that he loves, and the deep and abiding love that he has for his brother Thomas. There are just such moments of beauty in this story that I was just so blown away by. And even little droplets of humor in there. When Carlos comes to the castle to warn Harry about the wardens visiting Bach-ordered books and going there to dispense their judgment on the practitioners of black magic, and Molly's there, and he has the encounter with Molly, and how awkward it is because they had their very interesting fling in a previous book, and that made me laugh. It was those moments of levity that you get that kind of dampen the weight of the pain that is felt through this book. So I thought that was really well balanced. The amount of anger that you feel with Harry, you really feel like you are in Harry's shoes, because when he finds out that Mab has been orchestrating this whole marriage to get control of House Wraith and to bring them under her power, to find out that Harry had been used, you really feel that anger and resentment and disgust with him, and that sense of wanting to right that wrong. You really feel that along with him. You're just kind of drawn into that moral conflict that he's got warring in his head, to realize that he'd been duped. He didn't even see it. That was just amazing, and reinforces what an amazing character Mab is, and just to realize how much you love to hate Mab. That was truly a magnificent moment. And to see when he finally asked the boon of her, and then she even tries to turn that boon around when they get to the actual point of going to the island and trying to rescue Thomas. The way she tried to twist that and turn it around was really, really interesting to see. I absolutely loved Thomas, so I was so happy when he actually got rescued, and they were able to bring him back from the point of death, and able to bring him back into contact with his girlfriend, and their baby. And even though he had to lose the baby ultimately to the clutches of the Svardels, which really, really crushed me to know that he would never be able to see his child raised and to experience life with that child, except for the promise of the future when the child is grown and has to learn to deal with their own hunger. So I guess that's a silver lining, but it was so painful. You really feel drawn into Thomas's conflict when he has to take time away from Harry because of all that Harry did. Even though Harry had the right intentions, it ultimately really hurt Thomas in so many ways. And so it made sense that he had to take the time away that he did. But I was so happy that he came back around at the end. And I'm sure that conflict is far from over. But at least they are in a place where they can eventually work through their issues together and hopefully talk more about it and have that moment of forgiveness. Not necessarily forgetting what happened, but be able to forgive and move on. And I really hope they do come to a place where Thomas is willing to do that. I'm sure they will, but I'm sure there's going to be some fallout on that with Lara too, because that baby is part of her family as well. And so I'm sure there's going to be some fallout there, but that remains to be seen. I loved the battles. They weren't nearly on the scale of Battleground, which I think we kind of expected. But the battle for the castle and to see how Dracul was working behind the scenes to use that to cull his army and to raise up other members of his army that would make a much stronger contender in a battle to come. That was really interesting that Dracul was ultimately using Harry and using other vampires as well, the White Court vampires, and also using the ghouls. Yeah, so many things happened, and I loved when Harry was on the roof of the castle and drawing in all the power, and he just exclaimed, "I am Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden," and just unleashing the full power of everything at his disposal, the winter mantle and different things. And I was just blown away by the climax of this book as it spurred us on toward the end. And even minor conflicts were amazing. You know, dealing with the people at Bach Ordered Books trying to work their black magic, and then dealing with the wardens later on at Bach Ordered Books as he tried to keep them from unleashing the justice of the White Council on those people that were just really scared. They wanted to protect themselves. They shouldn't have used black magic to do it, but there was a reason why they did, and Harry wanted them to have a chance to make it right, and the wardens are quick to judge. And I love that Lady Molly was there, and she was claiming the rights of the independent barony of Marcone, and yeah, it was just such an awesome book. So many epic moments, and I know I bounced around all over the place, but I just really wanted to kind of get my thoughts out and to talk about the epic moments that really moved me in this story. And there are so many more that I probably don't even have time to talk about. You know, his mentorship of Fitz, and, you know, raising up a new wizard and seeing new characters come into play, like the gargoyles. And I love that they were all named after different spices. That was just hilarious. And even Bob got his moment to shine with his classic Bob humor, which we haven't seen a lot in this book, but he got his moments, and I'm really glad he did, because I miss Bob. So everything was just really, really well done. I applaud Jim Butcher. I rated this 5 stars on Goodreads for a reason. It was just that good. And now I am really, really excited that we are getting another novella in May called Outlaw, and I just can't wait. I cannot wait, guys. So I've talked long enough. We're going to end it there, but I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on 12 months. Please leave me a comment down below. Talk to me about the book if you already read it, or tell me if you're excited to read it if you have not read it yet. I would love to hear from you and hear your thoughts. I will be putting a spoiler comment section in the comments below. I'm going to pin it so that you can do spoiler comments there. I don't want other people to be spoiled that have not read the book. But yeah, please talk to me all about your thoughts on the book. Tell me about things I missed. Tell me about your theories on what's going to happen next. I don't know that I really have any theories per se, except that there's a whole lot more turmoil to come. I think eventually Harry is going to come back around and be the Merlin. At some point, I think that's going to happen. I don't know, but I just feel like his whole journey has been leading up to him taking on the mantle of the original Merlin. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's in our future. We've got a lot of books until then, I think, so I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are too. So that ends our talk about 12 months. I am going to move on now to do my deck of power. And I had gone to the game store and bought this little deck box for it here. We're going to open it up, if I can open it up. There we go. And while I'm doing that, you may have noticed I'm not wearing a hat today. I decided to do things a little bit different today. So I decided not to wear a hat. We'll see where that goes, see how that handles. And because this is such a large deck, I'm going to have to kind of shuffle it like tarot cards. I'm just going to have to hand shuffle it like this, because otherwise this deck is going to fall apart, and I'm not going to be able to pick up all the cards. So we're just going to kind of hand shuffle it like that. And I need bigger hands, apparently, guys. All right. So we're going to do that. And I'm just going to pull one right from the center here, guys, okay? All right, so here we go. You see it before I do, okay? A thriller novel. Oh, that's perfect. That is perfect. Okay, so now that I've finished Dresden, I get to find a thriller novel to read. So let's see what I can find here. Oh, I know just the thing.
A few moments later.
So, I drew a thriller novel, and the thriller novel I have chosen is Hannibal by Thomas Harris. So I will be picking up Hannibal. And, I'm not going to be doing my deck of power every month, I don't think. So I'm just going to throw this into the mix, get to it when I get to it. And I'm really excited to read more about Hannibal Lecter. I was planning to finish this series anyway this year, and so this just works out perfect. So that will be the next book I'm going to pick up, or at least one of them, right? And that's all I got here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, make sure you read more books.